Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Well, as you can see, we're going to talk about a receiver this week. This is the Sansui QRX-9001, and it's a bit of a beast. This is the largest of not just Sansui, but I believe the largest quad receiver ever made. And it's got heft. You can see that it is rather large and substantial, and I'll just say that there's no empty space inside this cabinet. It is filled with circuit boards. It's probably, or maybe arguably, the most complex receiver probably made in the 1970s. And it's a pretty substantial unit. Now these were made from 76 to 79, and it retailed for $1,150. Quite a lot of money in the 1970s. And you got a lot of, I'll say, a lot of work put into a box for that kind of money. And it unfortunately has a few issues because of that complexity. There are some weak points to them, especially the 8001 and the 9001, that were significant to them, and they suffered over time, I'll say. And it's some what they call cold solder joints, and there are some pass-through joints on some of the circuit boards that sort of lost connectivity over time. And there's a remedy for that. Some little pass-through wires, solder it down, and that sort of addresses it. But it's a bit of work to go through it, and it's a bit of a rat's nest in there. It's not very easy to get to. So you really want to make sure, if you're going to get it refurbished, to send this off to some specialists that know how to do it. Unfortunately, this unit needs that work. It hasn't been done yet. So there's a company out on the West Coast in Oregon called QRX Restore, and that's their specialty. Obviously, with a name like that, you would think so. But there's some great guys over there. They've been doing this for a very long time, and if you want to get your QRX restored, you might want to reach out to them, and they've got a bit of a queue, so it'll take some time. I think for getting one of these restored, which again, it's extremely complex. There are a lot of boards, a lot of caps in here. A complete restoration is just under $2,500, I believe. But again, it's a lot of work to get these repaired, to get them restored. It's a whole lot of work to get that done. So if you want to get yourself basically a rebuilt unit, I'd definitely reach out to them and see what they got going on. They do some other services as well, but again, it's arguably the most complex receiver ever made in the 1970s. So if you want, it's a unit you want to keep for a long time, I definitely would look them up. So when the QRX line was coming out, this series, the 001 series, it was at the same time as the XOXO, the 6060, 7070, 8080, 9090. And so they have all the same knobs that resemble that particular line. So it's basically a bigger or more complex build of the 9090. Now the 9090, I think it was the 9090 was 110 watts, I believe. The 9090 dB was 125, I believe. And these have all the similar buttons and everything. So it looks like that series, on steroids a bit. So a lot of the same features. The meters are the same. It has the same look and feel, just as a quad unit. Unfortunately, not as neat inside to get to the boards on the 9090, for example. I think it's probably one of the easier units to get in there and work on in many regards. But this one is not that way. There's so much more going on in here that to get to certain boards, you have to take off the whole front faceplate and move boards out of the way. They certainly packed a lot of technology in here at the time. But the feature set here is all about quad, and I actually don't use quad. I mentioned it when I talked about and looked at the Pioneer quad that I have, but it's not I don't have any quad media, and so it's really not anything I've ever utilized and listened to. But if you are a quad fan, then this is sort of the king of the hill. And that's why I called it the king of quad, because I don't think they got any bigger and badder than the Sansui QRX-9001. This is the monster receiver of the quad era, and it's substantial in every every viewpoint. It's a big unit, and it makes the Pioneer look quite a bit smaller when compared to it, because this is sort of the pinnacle. Now, I got this one from the original owner about 15 years ago. It was a fellow who was in the military. In fact, he had an entire Sansui system. I think he also had the quad reel-to-reel and maybe even a turntable. But at the time, this was the only unit I picked up. But it was, he kept it in pretty good shape. It's got a little ding here or there, a little nick here and there, but otherwise it's in very good shape, and he took good care of it. Now, as I mentioned, it's the sort of bigger sibling, or the quad sibling of the XOXO series. So from the mid plate down, it looks just like a 9090 or a 9090 dB, but when you're looking at the meter section here, the center display, you've got 4 meters. You got a meter now for 4 sets of speakers. So if you were rocking some quad media, you would be rocking visually as well. You'd have 4 meters there banging away, and it would be quite a show on whatever you were playing some quad AC/DC, and you'd have quite the spectacle going on here with all that meter activity. So very cool, to have that up here. I wish I've had some quad media. I've never, I don't have any quad media to play. I do have a quad cartridge, although I've never actually tried to use it because I don't have the media to use it on. So I've actually never set any up. But I can imagine if you did, it would be quite cool to see all those meters, jumping away. All right, so from here, I'm going to give you some up-close shots so you can see how cool this thing really is. And then we'll come back at the end and I'll do a summary on all of the features as it compares to others. All right, well, this is the segment where I look at the feature set that I've standardized on and give it points. So this was a way for me to compare receivers and amp preamp combos and get an idea of what feature sets they have and where they rank as far as power. So I came up with a standard way of giving it points for that. So for this one, again, it's the QRX-9001, made from 1976 to 79, had a retail of $1,150. I give all the points here based on it being two-channel because it wouldn't be fair to rank it up against a two-channel system. So only standardized watts and power here was on two-channel. So for that, it gets 20 points because it comes in at 120 watts for two-channel, just like or very close to the 9090. It does have the ability to handle 4-ohm speakers, and just like pretty much all of the receivers and amps of the day, they were not really very clear on can it do 4-ohm or not. It was sort of a vague reference. What they typically did was say that you could not have more or less than 8-ohm speakers in pairs, but there is a rating in there for 4 ohms. It can handle 4 ohms for a single pair. I'll try to say it clearly that way, so no one gets confused, right? Because remember, when you add sets of speakers, it reduces the impedance, and so you don't want to go below 4 ohms, and if you were to set up 2 sets of 4-ohm speakers, you could dip below that 4-ohm limit, and that would not be a good thing. So it does have a 4-ohm rating. So moving on, for phonos, it accommodates 1 phono. It does not have any function for MC cartridges, but it does handle 1 phono. It gets 10 points for that. Additional inputs, has 1 auxiliary, 2 tape inputs. Looks like it has a lot more, but that's for accommodating quad. So it gets 30 points for the additional 3 inputs. Has balance control, 5 points. Has the decibel muting switch, which is nice, gets 10 points for that. Loudness switch gets 5 points. It looks like it has lots of tone control, but that's because it's quad. You can already get 2 sets of that, but essentially it's just bass and treble. So you get 5 points each for that. Does have high-low filter though, which is a very nice feature, especially if you're going to tape some things. So it gets 10 points for that. Power meters, just like your 9090, it's got some cool power meters in there. And so we're getting 20 points for that. Does not have pre-out main-in ability, disconnect for that, so no points. But does have a nice wood cabinet, which was typical of the era here for this series. 20 points. AC connections has 1 switch, 1 unswitched, 10 and 5 points respectively. And then lastly, 20 points for 2 sets of speakers in 2-channel mode. So all totaled, it gets 205 points. Now, I didn't sort of resort the list of all of my reviews, but I'll do that in a future video. But most of the receivers of this era on the higher end, near the top of the line, typically got on the rating and on the scoring here, typically got, I would say, anywhere from 230 to 250 points. So because some of the features were left out, because this is a quad unit, it added quad functionality, so it takes off somewhere else. That somewhere else is typically things like not as many speaker sets, not as much, maybe a mid control on the tone controls, things like that they left out because they were adding functionality for quad. So I would say not killer features. It gives you the grunt, that would be great to have, like your 9090. And it's definitely a cool interface here. It's lit up. I think when across the room, it's one of the coolest receivers out there. It looks like it really means business, and it does. So on the point side, gets lower points, but not to take away from its actual significance and power that it brings to the table. Certainly has a presence on all of its own, makes it stand out. So that is the QRX-9001, and a bit of a, I don't know, maybe just because of the size of it, sort of has the look and heft of, let's say, a mini monster, if you will, because it certainly does look the part of a monster receiver. And you know, if you're going to compare it to the original first monster, which many call the Pioneer SX1010, then it's actually got a more substantial look and heft to it than that model. So, you know, I think you'd still be warranted to call it a monster receiver. It's definitely a monster quad receiver, you know, that's for sure. Well, I think that'll do it for this episode. I certainly enjoyed getting this unit out. Haven't gotten a chance to look at it so much up close in quite some time. If you don't want to miss the next episode, you might want to hit subscribe. If you'd like to support the channel, you might want to head over to stereoniche.com. That's our new membership site, and a lot more going on over there. Behind the scenes footage of things, more in-depth videos are over there, as well as discussions, and it's where I'll be if you'd like to reach out to me directly. So thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.